You're letting in as much good as you can bear, to tell you the truth. And in that sense, you could say you're doing very well because correction is occurring. Your lives are changing. Your perspective is changing. You are slowly abandoning the commitment to the warrior mentality. Now, you may feel that recently I've become more focused or more pushy. No, I'm not trying to hurry you up, but you know what? You're able to hear better. And so you're hearing what I'm saying louder. Because you are hearing better, your movement of awakening, if I may put it that way, is becoming more pronounced. Your movement of awakening is becoming more pronounced. What I'm saying isn't. You're going to be able to go back to the tapes of the first meetings we had in the study group and find that I've said some radical new thing you just heard way back then. But it didn't register with you because you weren't listening as well. So, before you use your mind poorly by engaging in judgment about your family, your friends, and your acquaintances and their stubbornness, before you engage in the judgment that will actually cause you to become ill if you become too intense about it, just dare to look at it, the situation, realistically enough to say, wow, they're just like me, I'm just like them. And then get down to the business of going within and asking for correction for yourself. And practice connecting with the Father. Practice leaning into the Holy Spirit. Leaning into it so that it might support you, infill you with clarity. Because until that happens, you won't have anything to give away that you'll want to keep. Oh, yes, but you talked about being able to be an agent for change. And that made me feel so good. I was so happy to hear that I could actually be a true and valuable agent for change. Well, that was nothing but the warrior in you feigning a willingness to not be a warrior, and it really meant to be a warrior in a new and more delicate way. Not quite as direct, not quite as forceful, but just as effective, because it would be coming from the right place. You see? Being an agent for change is what you are when you have said, not my will, Father, but thine be done. And then you have been undefended enough for truth to penetrate your awareness from the place of excellence in you, the Holy Spirit, the communicator of God's will to you. That is the only path you should be determined to walk. And when you walk that path, and you become a presence, totally involuntarily, changes begin to occur around you. And people will begin to report back to you that your mere presence changed their lives in one way or another. And all you'll be able to do is stand with them in awe. That's wonderful. Thank you for telling me. I rejoice with you. That's a far cry from, I told you so. Yep, you brought the problem to me and I set you straight, and aren't you grateful? I'm so glad I could be of help. You see the difference? Let's go into the book. If God knows His children as wholly sinless, it is blasphemous to perceive them as guilty. Well, if you're perceiving them as guilty, it means you've applied a definition to them that the Father didn't apply, right? You've made up a definition, and you're giving preference to that. Continuing, if God knows His children as wholly without pain, it is blasphemous to perceive suffering anywhere. If God knows His children to be wholly joyous, it is blasphemous to feel depressed. I'm just going to plant a seed here. Every one of you, if you're experiencing depression, experiences it by design. You have decided what are the dynamics and what are the circumstances under which I can't be happy. You have, what do they call it? Though there are designer drugs, they're called, and there are designer illnesses. There are designer mental problems. They're all designed. And they're all designed to have a particular effect. An effect that's wanted. Oh, but I'm not choosing to be depressed. I'm not choosing to be sad. Yes, always you are. You have determined the circumstances and the conditions which, if they occur, you can't help from feeling depressed about. Now, I know many of you are shaking your heads and disagreeing with me. But take a look. Does what depresses you depress your neighbor? Oh no, your neighbor says, I would love to have your problem. That'd be no problem for me at all. Well, you see, that's not that one's designer suffering or designer problem. They didn't design it that way. But what depresses them, you would be glad to have to deal with because you would have no problem with it. So what does this mean? In simple, practical terms, it means that every one of you make up your problems. You design your problems. And at any given moment when a circumstance or event occurs that would cause you to be depressed, at any given moment when that event or circumstance occurs, you could say, today I'm not going to be depressed by that. And if you mean it, you would find yourself moving on through your day, doing what you had planned on doing or needed to do, unaffected by the fact that that event or circumstance happened. Now, this is the truth. It's interesting, you don't hear the word blasphemous or blasphemy very much these days. What does it mean? Well, it has a couple of meanings. One of them is to behave in a disrespectful way or to have a disrespectful attitude toward God. But the more significant definition is the act of claiming the rights of God. Well, when you say, I'd rather look at that rose and see it as a physical organism made up of matter, short-lived, something that will die. Wow, you're replacing God. You see? You are taking on the rights. You are claiming the rights of God to be the creator of something. And your definition, you expect to be able to prove is true. That's blasphemy. You're taking on, claiming the rights of God. You're trying to be equal to God. Are you going to be punished for blasphemy? Well, no external source is going to punish you, but you're already being punished when you're in the frame of mind that says, Father, I'd rather define it myself. Father, step back, please. I'm about to override what you've made there by giving it a new meaning. Don't interfere with me, and God doesn't interfere with you. But you pay the penalty of forgetting that you're God's son, God's daughter, God's expression. And you suffer from the ignorance of who you are. And we've gone on at length about that. But that's how blasphemy works, and that's what blasphemy is. Continuing. All of these illusions, meaning seeing your brother as guilty or in pain or suffering, all of these illusions and the many other forms which blasphemy may take are refusals to accept creation as it is, the way God is being it, as what God is meaning it to be. If God created His Son perfect, that is how you must learn to see Him, to learn of His reality. And as part of the sonship, that is how you must see yourself, to learn of yours. Now, what that means is that as an experience, you have to be willing to move from the ideas and beliefs about yourself and everything else. That you have created and are so sure of, into an area where you're willing to look at those things without the definitions, which means that you're going to be looking at something that has no apparent meaning to you, except that you know from what I've said that the elements of it are divine, eternal, awesome, and so on. And it is as though you have to move into a realm of what seems like fantasy compared to the definiteness of the concepts you've been employing. And so you must be willing to look at your brother or the flower or whatever it might be with a vision that is still not substantiated to your eyes. It's as though you must be willing to know the truth before there's anything there to substantiate it to you. Your brother, your family member behaves in a way that is awful and disturbing and unintelligent, and you have physical evidence of it. And you must be willing to stand in the face of that, even in the face of their unrelenting presentation of it, and be willing to withdraw from what your eyes are telling you and what they are asserting, to go within to the altar, to go to the source of the experience of truth. And so it's as though you are abandoning tangible reality for intangible make-believe almost. And that's the way it may seem. But by going within to the source of the experience of truth, you are for lack of better words, aligning yourself with reality with a capital R that doesn't seem to be visible to you at the moment. And that's what opens the door for a miracle, a sudden shift of perception that is healing. Continuing. Do not perceive anything God did not create, or you are denying Him. You know what that means? As depressing as it might sound, it means that for the most part as you go through your day, you are denying Him because you are perceiving things that God did not create. And you know what? You don't know which are the things that God did not create. Now, I do not want to be confusing here. When you go through your day, the only thing in your face is what God has created. But the way you're seeing it, what you are determining those things to be, is not what God created. And it is what you have determined everything is that stands between you and your direct experience of the presence of God there. Now, put negatively, as I've just done, it could be another reason for you to feel bad. Or it could serve to simply mean that the only thing confronting you is the kingdom of heaven seen through a glass darkly. And therefore, it is utterly reasonable for you to engage a level of curiosity that you've not brought into play before. And that doesn't involve feeling bad at all. But I must point out to you that most everything you're seeing is not what God has made, so that you have a reason to bring greater curiosity into play. If you don't know that there is more to see, you won't be curious. And if I don't tell you that the majority of what you see, not just a little bit, but the majority of what you see is not what God created, you won't know how much good you have in store for you that's right in front of you, which can increase your reason for engaging in curiosity even more. Some people don't hear good news when it's provided in a pleasant way. And so it is sometimes helpful to say, here's the good news. Most of what you're seeing isn't what God is being. Most of what you're seeing is an illusion. Most of what you're seeing constitutes an inadequate experience of being. But it's just an inadequate perception of something full of ultimate, capital M, meaning, awesome divinity. I don't want you to be comfortable in your ignorance, even if you're not feeling distressed in it. Because it's not your birthright to be experiencing such finite limitation. Again, do not perceive anything God did not create, or you are denying him. His is the only fatherhood, and it is yours only because he has given it to you. Your gifts to yourself are meaningless, but your gifts to your creations are like his, because they are given in his name. See, the gift that you give to your world by saying it's a physical world in a material universe is not a gift that's given in his name, because he doesn't show up anywhere in that definition. All that shows up is you. And you are an orphan, you see. When you look at something and the gift you give to it is an acknowledgement, a recognition of its divinity, the gift is given in God's name because you've had to invite God in order to experience the reality of the earth, of the thing you're giving the gift of true acknowledgement to. And that gift of acknowledgement, that recognition of the divinity of a thing and your acknowledgement of it, is what constitutes your creation. That is why your creations are as real as his. Why? Again, because they are given in his name, without excluding him. Yet the real fatherhood must be acknowledged if the real son is to be known. It's the only way you're going to come back into the true experience of who and what you are. By annulling the divorce with your father. You believe that the sick things which you have made are your real creations, because you believe that the sick images you perceive are the sons of God. Well, that's where blasphemy comes in, because you're trying to be equal to God. You are engaging in acts of usurping the rights of God and claiming them for yourself. And so the things that you have made become your offspring, your creations, the Son of a God. Only if you accept the fatherhood of God will you have anything, because his fatherhood gave you everything. That is why to deny him is to deny yourself. Arrogance is the denial of love, because love shares and arrogance withholds. As long as both appear to you to be desirable, the concept of choice, which is not of God, will remain with you. Remember, the god of sickness is the belief that you have a capacity to choose between gods. Between God, who is real, and the likeness of God that you have made up.